You know, first it starts with the feet, and then the leg, and pretty soon you're out there.
What we know as powwows today, that protocol originated with the Omahas. You were asking about where the powwow, you said you were going to do your thesis on the powwow. It was the Omahas who had this protocol. And this was told to me by Ben Berskin, Sr. And he said this protocol of what we know as powwow today originated amongst the Omahas. And it was the Omahas that invited the Lakotas down. He said the Lakotas, you know, he said at that time, he said, controlled a vast portion of the plains. And, you know, the Lakotas, Dakotas, and Nakotas. But it was the Lakotas that the Omaha invited down. So the Lakotas came down to the Omaha people and they participated in their celebration and their powwow. In the Omahas, originally, there was 84 songs that were sung. They would start with that first song, and then they would go until the last song. Sometimes it would be over with those 84 songs. Sometimes it would last for 3 days. Sometimes it would last weeks, depending on, you know, what all was going on. They would come to a part in the songs where they would sing a song, memorial song, calling all of those people who had lost a loved one. So then when they would sing that song, all the families that had a loved one walk on, they would come to the arena, they would come to the circle, and they would sing their songs, and they would talk about the relative who walked on, and then they would have their giveaway, then they would have their honoring, and then they would have the feed. So depending on how many of those families came there during that time, you know, they could go on for days. If there was a lot of people, if it was a time of war or disease or sickness, you know, and there was a lot of relatives that walked on, then those would last for days. Then they would also sing a song for the new ones, the little ones. And the families that had little ones, they would come. And they would honor, you know, the new relative. They would bring that new relative into the circle, and they would say, you know, this is the way, you know. And so they would introduce that child to the community and to the people. And they would honor that child, then coming into the circle of life and coming in amongst the people. So sometimes those 84 songs, like I said, it'd be last 3 days. It may go on for weeks. So they sang those 84 songs. And the Lakota people, and they said, we like this. We like this, what you do here. They said, we want to do this, you know, we want to do that right. We want to have that right. So they asked for that right. The Lakotas, they asked the Omaha, they said, can we have this right? Because, you know, at that time, you know, that you just didn't do things. You just didn't do things. You out of respect, you know, you would ask permission. You would get that right. So they asked permission. They asked for the right. And the Lakotas, they went on back and they came back, and they brought 500 horses to the Lakota, to the Omaha. And the Omaha, they said, well, let us talk about it. We'll think about it. Let us talk about it. So they said, okay. So they waited, and then finally the Omahas, they came out and they talked to the Lakotas. But the Omaha people, they knew how the Lakotas were, because the Lakota people were, a large nation, and they also knew that because of their strength, the size of the nation, and also too the strength of the nation, that that it would be a good thing for the Omahas. That they said, well, this nation of people, we need to keep them as our friends. So they said, we'll give you this right, but to make sure that you are, that you ain't going to abuse it. We're only going to give you 42 songs. So they only gave them 42 songs. And they were supposed to, after a while, they invited the Omaha to come up to the Lakotas. And they were going to, because the Lakotas, they said, no, we have this right now, so we in turn invite you to come up to our celebration, to our Wachipi. So the Omahas, they agreed. But before that happened, the Europeans were coming. And then there was war, there was conflict, and that never did happen. So the Lakotas they only had those 42 songs. Well, and then of course, then the Europeans came, the white people came, and they fought the Omahas as well. So those 42 songs that were never given to the Lakotas, those got lost. Those got lost. So now the Lakotas, they themselves, that's the reason why the Lakotas now compose songs, because they were never given all 484. So it's the Lakotas who they compose those songs, and they call those powwow songs. So that's when they're supposed to be sung, during the powwow, during the Wachipis.
There's something very magical, very spiritual that takes place in all that preparation. Yes, I'll be the first to admit it does not always go smoothly. Matter of fact, I think if it had ever gone absolutely perfectly without a hitch on setting up on Friday, I wouldn't know how to handle it. But again, when that first drum beat goes on Saturday afternoon, what happens, happens. Powwows come forth in a life all its own.
Powwow. This powwow was a place that I found out I could see some Indians in all of Ohio, a place without reservations.
Anybody here at our original one 23 years ago? I was there. Kenny was there. It was pretty rugged. we actually had to get a Boy Scout drum, the drum and some Boy Scout dancers to help us out. So what happened was Selma had the center going for about 7 years, and said, you know, we ought to have some cultural doings for our people. They thought, well, maybe we ought to have a picnic, maybe. So they decided to have a picnic down by the river. Somebody says, well, maybe we ought to get a drum, and if we're going to get a drum, we ought to get some dancers. It was just about that time Ronald Reagan, everybody remember Ronald Reagan? Didn't know that he was going to come up in this conversation, did you? Ronald Reagan had a Secretary of the Interior by the name of James Watt. And Mr. Watt had this thing about going around and busting a lot of our spiritual people for holding on to eagle feathers. Many of them were accused of selling eagle feathers. And a few of them did, but if you've been on our reservations, you know, and trying to feed your families, you're offered a few $1,000s for an eagle feather, and you're told that this eagle feather is going to be used in a good way. A lot of our people was tempted. Others, they weren't tempted, and yet they were still indicted. And they made the news. And 7 of them came from our reservation. And Selma said that we need to do something, help these guys with their legal costs. And so the very first powwow, it was to help out the defendants.
Well, the powwow means a lot to me because I get to see people I haven't seen that you don't get to see. It's like a homecoming. You look forward to it all year long so that you can see people that you don't see. And then there's always the drum, the dancing, and all that, of course. But then there's the being able to keep the tradition, show the children that there's other people out there that want to do this. The fact that we're one big family.
Is a gathering of people. It's not a ceremony of any type. It's where people from different nations come together to celebrate maybe 2 days of happiness, listening to songs, listening to the drums, watching dancers, and coming to meet friends, relatives, make friends, make relatives, and invite people to your home. And where you live, you might have a powwow going on. We call it a wachipi back home. Back here we call it powwow. But that's, you know, it's just a gathering to have fun. I mean, you know, there's bound to be ups and downs there, but you know, the majority of it is just to come and have fun and spend time with your relatives and so take time away from everything
different
else.
Stories for what powwow is. You know, the one main thing for me is that a powwow is a celebration. It's a gathering. You know, almost every story that I've heard about powwow always deals with, you know, that tribe coming together, you know, for that summer, and they all get together and they rejoice, you know, for their lives and, you know, for happiness, you know, and they all tell their stories, you know, and a lot of that's kind of what men's traditional dancing is a lot. Traditionally, it used to be the stories, what they went through in their, you know, that time they were apart, you know. It's a way to communicate a lot of times. So that powwow is, you know, really just, you know, a way for everyone to get together and have fun, to enjoy, you know, to rejoice in their culture, their tradition, their religion, and to, you know, to keep that alive, to live with that, you know, so we don't forget who we are.
Okay. And what does powwow mean to you personally?
Exactly that. It's a place where I go to see my friends, you know, my family. It's a place, you know, that I go. It's kind of, you know, my backbone, you know, in life. It's what makes me happy. That way I know that I'm doing something for my people. Whether I'm singing, or whether I'm dancing, or whether I'm doing security, or whether I'm helping to run a powwow or start a powwow. It all has to do with keeping that culture, you know, showing that culture, because there's so little known about our people that, you know, the more we can show people who we are, the better off we'll be.
Being, you know, culturally responsible. And so for me, powwows, they're a great way to introduce people on a very simple level to our culture. They're educational tools about explaining, you know, what is authentic, what is not, you know, what are the dancers doing. I haven't danced for a while, and usually that's because I'm so busy doing other things, and I usually laugh. I say I have like 15 minutes at a powwow to talk to each person that I usually see, to cram in like 6 months of work, because this is where we network. You know, this is where, like, you know, Bob Roca comes down from the Cleveland Indian Center, I come up here and Carol's here, and this is where we all start networking, seeing what we're all doing, and can we help each other, you know, and that's why
to keep the culture going, to let people know that we're still here. I just love to dance. I love to be the drum. It just draws you. Gets you into that spiritual mode. Just feel really good out there. It's good for
it's a spiritual awakening. It's a time for me to get grounded. It's a time to remember who I am, what I am, and it is a time to pay respect to those that came before. For me, a powwow is not just about what I see; it's about what I feel and what I remember and what I need to pass on.
People, I'm glad that you're doing this, because people need to know that we're here. We're not going anywhere. We're real. We're not playing. When we get rigged up, those are sacred. That's a sacred circle out there. We're not out there dancing just to be seen. We're out there dancing. We're supposed to be dancing in a prayerful way for the whole universe, not just for us, but for everyone. And our outfits are not costumes. They're, you know, we're not play acting. And when people see them, they need to respect them. And you see a lot of people, they stand and they laugh and they snicker at how, you know, our dancing is, how they put it, is lame. Some of them do, because, you know, they like the new modern dance and stuff. But that's not it. We're out there dancing for the Creator. We're not out there dancing like we go to a bar and dance. It's a whole different thing. And until people come to a couple of powwows, they really don't realize that. You know, they want to touch the feathers, they want to touch the regalia, but they're learning. And with people like you, it'll be fine. They'll understand more that we're not playing, you know. And we have opened it to the public so that you can come and see this is our way of life.
blown by. And it hit the stage this time.